Hi students, I'm Abhishek from Vidyaru, and in today's session we are going to look at legal reasoning. Legal reasoning as per the updated and new CLAT pattern. Because you are aware that in the new pattern you won't be asked any questions related to your previous legal knowledge. You are not expected to be a lawyer right now. In fact, you need to be good at reasoning. You need to reason out things from the information given to you. See, the information will be given to you in the form of a passage, in the form of a paragraph. And in that passage, in that paragraph, somewhere there will be a legal principle, there will be a legal rule which you will have to understand. So, on the basis of that understanding, on the basis of the understanding of that legal rule, that legal principle which is there in the passage, you will be asked certain questions. Those questions will be application based. There will be certain scenarios, there will be certain caselets wherein you will have to take a decision like a judge does. So a decision will be similar to the one taken by a judge. So if you can reason out and arrive at the right decision, arrive at the most appropriate and legally sound decision, that means you have legal reasoning skills. So make sure you share this video with your friends so that they also get to know about the updated legal reasoning pattern. And our batches, our CLAT coaching batches are getting started very soon. In fact, 1st of April, we are starting a new batch, and every week new batches will keep getting started. So make sure you sign up for these batches if you want to cover the complete syllabus. That is really advisable. So let's get started without wasting any further time. And the passage, as you can see, is based on defamation. So let's read it together. Defamation is one of the most common type of cases that are filed in the courts of law around the world. So the first statement says defamation is a very common type of litigation. It's a very common type of legal proceeding. Anyone who feels he or she has been wrongly blamed, wrongly accused of something by someone in public through words or gestures. So it could be words, it could be gestures as well. It need not be words only, it could be actions also. It could be signs or symbols or gestures also. Spoken, written, or by inference. It could be spoken, written, or even by inference. That person may be implying. That person may not mention it upright. That person may only be implying something, may only be hinting at something. Can file a defamation suit. Can file a defamation suit in a court of law. So a defamation suit can be filed in a court of law, claiming that the accusation leveled against the defendant deals a blow to the reputation of the plaintiff. Just a brief introduction. See, a plaintiff is somebody who brings the legal proceeding. Plaintiff is somebody who files the court case. Very simple as that. Plaintiff is somebody who files the court case, and the defendant is trying to defend himself. He is trying to prove that he is innocent. So a plaintiff brings in the legal proceedings and the defendant is trying to defend himself. Anyway, in India, the definition of defamation is generally the accepted definition as per the law in the UK. Now just read the definition of defamation once, which holds true in the United Kingdom law, and the same definition holds true in India as well. Just read it once. The English law generally defines defamation as such. Now, what is the defamation? Let's see. What is defamation as per UK? Defamation is the publication. Defamation is the publication. The word publication is important bit. Defamation is the publication of a statement which reflects on a person's reputation. So, defamation is a statement which reflects on a person's reputation, and it definitely wrongly reflects on a person's reputation. It tries to lower that person's reputation. So, reflects on a person's reputation and tends to lower him in the estimation of right-thinking members of society. Right-thinking members, the reasonable members, the ones who are responsible citizens of the society, in their minds. In their minds, that statement, the publication of that defamatory statement lowers the esteem of a certain individual, or tends to make them shun or avoid him. So if that defamatory statement, the publishing of it tends to ensure that these right thinking members start avoiding the person concerned, then it is defamation. This is the definition as per Sir P.H. Winfield from the United Kingdom. It goes on to say IPC section 499. That means IPC section 499 deals with defamation, and section 400. Section 400 of the same IPC lays down the punishment for criminal defamation. So IPC gives you the definition as per the Indian scenario, as per the Indian law, and section 500 lays down the punishment for criminal defamation. Let's read further. Section 499. Now we have been given the section 499 where it talks about defamation. It says, whoever by words either spoken or intended to be read. So those words could be either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs or by visible representations. That means the words could be spoken, they could be the ones intended to be read, or even signs and symbols, visible representations. Makes or publishes any imputation. See, an imputation is what? An imputation is an accusation. It is some sort of charge or defamatory remark. So you can call it a charge, you can call it a defamatory remark. So whoever does so makes an imputation, makes a defamatory remark, publishes a defamatory remark. The word publish, as you can see, is pretty important. It has emerged, it has come up in the Indian definition also in section 499 as well. Any imputation concerning any person intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm. So if that imputation will harm, or if it is believed to be harming the reputation of such a person, is said, except in the cases herein after expected, to defame that person. So the sum total is that if anybody publishes a statement, it could be a spoken statement, it could be through signs, it could be through symbols. If he makes a defamatory remark concerning the individual, concerning any individual, intending to harm him, intending to harm his reputation, then if that statement is published, the person is said to have defamed. The person is said to have defamed someone. That is the exact section 499 which is given in the IPC. The law of defamation. The law of defamation and the right to free speech seem to run contrary to each other. Contrary means opposite. See, defamation puts you under some restriction. Tries to restrict the defamatory remarks made by people. Those defamatory remarks could be spoken, they could be read. So in a certain way it goes against your right to free speech. That means there are certain things, there are certain restrictions, there are certain statements you cannot make, there are certain remarks you cannot pass, there are certain signs and gestures which may lower the reputation of a person, and those signs, those actions, those remarks are not to be made. So in a sense, defamation law and the right to free speech, they are opposite to each other, they run contrary to each other, because in right to free speech you try to protect the freedom of expression. You try to protect the freedom of expression in the right to free speech, whereas your freedom of expression is getting curtailed and restricted in a certain sense through this defamation law. That is why they run opposite to each other. In fact, one of the major exceptions, now it goes on to talk about the exceptions to the law of defamation. In fact, one of the major exceptions to defamation is if what is being alleged is the absolute truth. If the alleged thing, if the thing which has been said to be true, if it happens to be the absolute truth, if it is surely true and is for the public good. If it is for the public good, that means the statement which is said to be defamatory. Now listen to me carefully. If the statement which is said to be defamatory, which has been alleged to be defamatory, if that statement is true, if that statement is an absolute truth, if that statement is true, or if that statement is for public good, if that statement is for public good, if it can be proved that it is for the public good, it is the absolute truth, then you can claim innocence, then you will not be liable to this defamation law. If your statement can be proven to be the absolute truth or is supposed to be in the good of the public, then you can claim innocence to this law of defamation, then your liability will not be there. the criminality of defamation was challenged in the Supreme Court. So, in the Supreme Court, the criminality of defamation, the criminal defamation was challenged in 2015. The argument was that it was an unreasonable restriction, as I told you, that it puts you under some restriction. So, the argument was that the defamation law is an unreasonable restriction on the constitutionally guaranteed right to freedom of speech and expression, as we have looked at earlier. So the Apex Code, however, upheld the British era section. So this 499 and 500, these are British era sections, and but the Apex Code, that means the Supreme Court upheld defamation, upheld section 499 in its 2016 ruling. So now, based on what we have learned, especially the section 499, the legal principle that you have just now understood, you have to attempt this question, and the question is in front of you. Look at this caselet, this case scenario. Alina, daughter of Mr. Jacob. So Alina is the daughter of Mr. Jacob. She was married to LK Chaco. So let's understand the relationships once. Alina is the daughter, Mr. Jacob is the father, and LK Chaco is the husband. LK Chaco is Alina's husband, and Mr. Jacob is Alina's father. On four occasions, Chaco, that means the husband, writes to Alina from Pune. So from Pune, he is writing to Alina, and he is writing certain letters. Meanwhile, Alina was residing with her parents at Chennai. During that time, Alina was residing with her parents in Chennai, which it is claimed contained defamatory remarks about Mr. Jacob. So LK Chaco has written letters to his wife Alina, who happens to be the daughter of Mr. Jacob, and in those letters there are certain defamatory remarks. There are certain defamatory remarks about Mr. Jacob. So LK Chaco is alleged to have made certain defamatory remarks about Mr. Jacob. Now, how did Mr. Jacob get to know about it? Because Alina passed on these letters to her father. So Alina passed on these letters to Mr. Jacob, who was the father, and that is how he got to know that LK Chaco, his son-in-law, was making certain defamatory remarks about him. So now the father-in-law, Mr. Jacob, has brought a litigation in court charging Chaco with the offense of defamation. So he has charged Chaco with the offense of defamation. Will Mr. Jacob succeed? Students, we can understand that only when we look at the principle of defamation once again, section 499 once again. As we have learned that the words which are defamatory intended to be read, yes, these were intended to be read. He had written a letter. Making or publishing any imputation. Now the word publishes is important out here. It does not mean, please understand, this is the critical part. The word publish does not mean that it has to get published in a magazine or a newspaper or a gazette. No, it's not like that. It does not need to be published in the sense that newspapers are published or magazines are published or gazette notifications are published. No. Publishing only means that a certain third person also gets to know about that information, also gets to read those words, or also gets to hear those words. So these words, please understand students, these words are about Mr. Jacob. Chaco has written these words about Mr. Jacob. So publishing the information means that apart from these two, if a third person also gets to know, about these remarks, then it is publishing. So if such a statement is published, then we say that the person has been defamed. So we can say, if we can somehow demonstrate that these defamatory remarks were published, then it will satisfy the condition for defamation. And in that scenario, of course, if the condition for defamation gets satisfied, then in that scenario, Mr. Jacob will succeed. But now you need to understand, have these defamatory remarks been published or not? As I said, publishing means a certain third person also gets to know about it. So, can you say that the statement has been published? On the face of it, prima facie, on the face of it, it seems that the information also was disseminated to Alina. Alina, who is the daughter, she also got to know about these defamatory marks. So there are two parties involved. One party was Mr. Jacob, who has brought in the proceedings. Okay, and then there is Chaco, who is guilty, who is supposed to be guilty of defamation. And then there is the third party, Alina, who seems to have, in fact, who has also read these words. So, can you say that the statement has been published? If you think deeply, at the face of it, it seems it has been published, but in reality, the statement has not been published. The statement has not been published. Why? Because when Jacob, when Jacob brought in the proceedings, at that point of time, in fact, students at the time when the letter was written, Alina and Chaco were man and wife, they were husband and wife, they were married to each other. So the statement from a husband to a wife, the statement from a wife to a husband, it is not publishing of information. It is not publishing of information because legally a husband and a wife in such a scenario are considered the same person. Legally, such a scenario assumes that it is privileged communication. Chaco, the husband, has made this communication, has made these statements to Alina, and they are the same individual. They are legally the same individual because they are husband and wife. So there has been no publishing of information because it has not been revealed to a third person. So in this case, we cannot say that the statement has been published. The statement has not been published. So will Mr. Jacob succeed? Of course not. Mr. Jacob will not succeed because the statement has not been published. Alina is the same person. As Chaco. So the answer will be no. Will Mr. Jacob succeed? The answer is no. Now we need to look at the no options. That means options B and C, and then decide which one is to be marked as the answer. B says no. Alina brought the letters to the knowledge of her father, so she has published the defamatory statement, not Chaco. Option B is incorrect because it says Alina is guilty. Alina is guilty of publishing the defamatory statement. See, who published the statement? In fact, nobody. Nobody published the statement because, as I told you earlier, the remarks were relayed from Chaco to his wife Alina. So, in the first case scenario, there was no publishing of the statement, and B says the statement was published. And it was published by Alina. So it is incorrect because the statement was not published in the first case. So automatically option C turns out to be the right answer, but we will analyze it nonetheless. C happens to be the answer. Let's understand the reason what makes it the correct option. No, a communication by a husband to his wife. Of a matter defamatory of another person does not amount to publication. Absolutely the correct logic. The communication by a husband to his wife or vice versa. In this case, it was a matter defamatory. Of the father-in-law, Mr. Jacob. So this son-in-law Chaco is not guilty of defamation because he has only and only communicated it to his wife, and it does not amount to publication of the statement. So students, that makes C our correct answer. And that is exactly, students, that is exactly the kind of questions that you will find in the exam. So make sure you keep watching these videos. Make sure you subscribe to our program because you require a lot of practice. A lot of finer issues need to be discussed case by case, question by question. And that can happen only and only when you happen to be a subscribed student, only when you complete the full syllabus through our sessions. And with that, I will wind up today's discussion. If you wish to call our online team, you can call upon the numbers which have been displayed on your screen, the numbers which are given on your screen. You can call them up and inquire about the program. Thank you so much.